Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is my presentation on creating a methodology. This is a case study analysis for advanced project management for my class at National American University, and the instructor is Dr. Jimmy Flores. So some of the stuff we're going to cover today, we're going to do a background of the case. We're going to look at the key problem, break it down. We'll look at the role of the project management office. And then we'll go into some implementation steps on how we're going to solve the key problem. This will be life cycle phases, flexibility versus a rigid structure, standardization, capturing best practices, and then training. And then we'll go into the case study questions. This will cover corporate culture analysis, a project management office effectiveness, the project management office reporting structure, as well as life cycle phases, the flexibility versus the formal design, and then best practices importance. And then we'll wrap it up with a conclusion at the end. So background of the case, the urgency behind the case is the company is falling behind because their customers expect a structured project management. The company is losing its competitiveness, and many of its competitors already have this methodology in place. So no formal project management methodology is put into place, and the CEO demands change within 6 months. So key problem, the biggest issue here isn't the tools, it's the organizational's resistance and politics. There's a lack of standardized methodology, there's internal resistance from leadership itself on making these changes, and then there's the fear of losing authority. Many of these people feel like with a defined out methodology plan, they will not have that authority anymore. But ultimately, this problem is leading to delays in decision making. So what is the role of the project management office? PMOs are created for project governance. They ensure that projects run smoothly, they develop the methodologies, provide leadership, and they ultimately drive the project implementation. So in this whole thing, standardization is critical. PMO's best practice is to standardize the project processes, and they do this through process maps, guidelines, documentation, and reporting tools. So how are we going to fix this problem? Step one, it'll be a life cycle phases. There are too many phases that create unnecessary bureaucracy and reduce productivity. So we want to take this down to just 6 or less phases. This will avoid the excessive gate reviews, reduce the administrative burden, and then focus on efficiency. The next step will be is flexibility versus the rigid structure. Flexibility allows project managers to tailor processes rather than follow rigid rules. Uh, the preference is for the flexibility approach. Not all projects are one size fit all. So being flexible allows you to kind of mold the needs for each project individually. But you still want to have in place and use templates, checklists, and guidelines to make sure you're hitting all the key points, and ultimately just adapt to whatever the customer needs for the project. Step 3 is standardization. Standardization improves consistency, but still allows adaptability. So we can use the the Project Management Book of Knowledge guide standards. We can develop consistent templates that can be used on each of the projects, and then allow customization per project. As I just stated, there's not a one size fit all for projects. So allowing for a little customization to meet the intent for each project will bring success. Step 4 is to capture the best practices. Capturing best practices improves future project performance and is often required in many contracts. I see this myself in much of the work that I do. You'll learn throughout a project's life cycle of certain things that didn't work well, and this is why having best practices at the end is going to allow you to identify ways to do better in the future. This will be lesson learned documentation. You'll do an end of project review, do some knowledge sharing, and most of the time this is required by the customer. Step 5 is training. Training is essential and should be consistently used to grow project teams. I threw on here a one-day training program to kind of solve this issue that they're running into. And you could argue one day is not enough. You might need a whole week to set aside with your project team and figure things out. This training needs to be implemented to project managers and team members. Everybody needs to be on the same page on what's supposed to happen in the flow of the project. And we also need to ensure in this training that they're adopting the methodology into their uses. All right, so let's go into some of the case study questions and break it down. First one talks about corporate culture analysis. What can you determine about the corporate culture from the fact that they waited this long to consider the development of an enterprise project management system? Really, just reading through it, there's resistance to change. Many of these leaders and project managers don't want to change the processes they already have in place. It's very politically driven. There's fear-based decision making, and there's a lack of urgency until there's a crisis. No one's doing anything about this until they've realized all of the competitors have something over them, and so now it's an urgency. I I feel like this enterprise is very reactive and not proactive in the way they tackle things, and that's why they're in the predicament they're in. So project management office effectiveness, can a PMO accelerate the implementation process? Upfront, yes, PMO accelerates implementation. It'll centralize the authority making decision area. It'll improve consistency. It'll speed up the decision making process. Like I said, lowering those gate reviews down to 6 will really speed up the process. And I mean, bottom line, PMOs streamline processes and reduce confusion throughout the team. So the PMO reporting structure, is it acceptable for the PMO to report to the Chief Information Officer, or should it report to someone else? You know, reporting to the CIO is acceptable, but it really limits your capabilities. The better option would be report to the CEO or someone at an executive level, maybe a VP. But by doing that, it'll ensure organizational-wide authority. So the PMO should ideally sit at that executive level so they can guide the change for the whole enterprise instead of being departmentalized, which will cause biases from the team members. Life cycle phases. Why is it best to have 6 or fewer life cycle phases in an enterprise project management system? You know, it's recommended to have 6 or less phases. This will reduce paperwork and delays, and it'll also increase efficiency. You know, fewer phases improves the agility and the focus of the team. Flexibility versus formal design. Is it best to design an enterprise project management system around flexible or inflexible elements? Generally, when first developing an enterprise project management system, do companies prefer to use formal or informal designs? So 100% flexible systems is preferred. Like I said, not one project size fits all. Sometimes you need to flex things around to make it work to the needs of what the customer needs. I would say there's usually an informal approach initially. There's buildup. You got to identify what's going to be needed and then implement them. And then this will allow for growth and adaptation for the team as they progress. So I think bottom line, most companies start informal and then it matures over time as they learn about it, about the project and the processes. So best practices importance. Should an enterprise project management system have the capability of capturing best practices? I would say yes, this is an essential feature. Every team needs to implement best practices. It's the only way to learn from things that worked and things that didn't work so you can improve for the future. It'll improve your future projects. It'll support continuous improvement. And I stated this earlier, it's often required by many customers. They want to know what worked and what didn't. And this is critical for that long-term success of the enterprise. So to wrap this up in a conclusion, I think the big thing is methodology improves competitiveness. It was pretty laid out in the story about it, how many of their competitors already have that and they're ahead of the game, and that's why this company is pushing for it so hard. I think the another thing to point out is the project management office is key to success. You need that authoritative decision making under one umbrella so you can really drive the success of the project through the methodology. And then flexibility and standardization bring balance to the enterprise. Uh, and then ultimately, continuous improvement is essential. You're always going to take that standardization and the flexibility, you'll get the lessons learned at the end, and that's how you'll improve for the future. To wrap all this up, structured project management is vital to any endeavor. And here are my references. Thank you for your time.